An interesting topic. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time, and gaming, something that has undoubtedly become popularised in the last couple decades. I see an evolution. I see it in my own family. When I was growing up, I had some exposure to video games, but not too much, as its accessibility wasn't huge when I was a younger lad, and there wasn't really a gadget-focused culture until I was around 13 or 14, which I then kind of rejected anyway. I wasn't the biggest on phones or such, I had a brick, basically. It wasn't the most competitive thing, and it wasn't prevalent in culture. To have an impressive iPhone or iPad at a young age was a privilege. Nowadays, within the society that I'm in, it's almost a deprivation not to have one. Online and offline games have become infinitely more compatible with daily life, and many revolutionary accessories have been released, retaining many gamers, and increasing the younger demographic in particular. Comparatively, my brother spends insane amounts of time on video games. Even though I was a fairly passionate, avid gamer at his age, there wasn't such a motivation to play said games. Apparently, I'm not the only one who has noted a technological shift in the industry, with the World Health Organization, abbreviated to the WHO, also recently picking up on it. Now, the WHO, as they would be expected to, have a set of guidelines and classifications for diseases, aptly named the International Classifications of Diseases, also abbreviated to ICD. They're quite a verbose organisation, and in a way they have to be. Now, given the evolving times, the ICD has to respectively evolve their classifications. Their most recent revision, ICD-11, is in the works. It is currently sat at beta draft stage to my understanding. However, one inclusion that has raised a few eyebrows was the involvement of what they decided to name the gaming disorder. On the website, it's located in the mental, developmental, and neurodevelopmental disorders section on the drop-down box from disorders due to addictive behaviours, sat comfortably below the gambling disorder. Now, if you're a casual gamer like many, this will not affect you. In fact, it almost certainly won't affect you. So what do people take issue with? Well, I think it's the fact that an addictive personality could affect participation in any hobbies. So what is people's problem if it really doesn't affect too many individuals? Well, I think it's the legitimate point that it comes from the addictive personality. I think people's point is that an addictive personality could affect participation in any hobbies, and that is true. Why isn't there a tennis disorder, for example, for people who play too much tennis? Firstly, I assume that other addictions, like the exemplary tennis disorder, would be covered under the other section, but gaming probably has its own disorder now, not because there's anything unique about gaming as a concept, but most probably because of the disproportionate amount of people, possibly in East Asian countries in particular, who have really adopted a very fervent gaming culture. In South Korea, for example, they even have laws preventing children under 16 from playing video games from 10 PM to 6 AM due to a number of gaming-relating incidents, as well as investing money into clinics and services to help combat what could be perceived as an epidemic. So definitely, in some places, this distinction can be justified. It's important to note that a disorder takes prevalence when it inhibits your ability to function in your daily life, and the WHO do take note of that. Once again, their definitions do have a generalizability. We've all probably done things before that have been a detriment to our health in hindsight, but we did it anyway with the hope of some reward. There's nothing exceptional about gaming from that perspective. Gambling, to an extent, is a bit more distinctive as it involves monetary suffering. There is a clear difference in investment, and the WHO have done a bit of a half copy-paste job, and the equivalence obviously isn't quite there yet. Maybe they'll clean that up after the draft. But the clarification that it does impair functions in daily life is an important component, and that is emphasized, so there is no discrediting them there. Obviously, most things taken in excess will have some sort of implication, but the WHO clearly believe there is some sort of exclusivity within gaming, and to an extent there is. It's definitely a more immediate yet sedentary hobby, and it has its appeals. However, I think one point that must be stressed is that it's not necessarily on the game for the disorder. As the subdivision states, the main cause of this is an addictive personality, which subsequently makes us question whether a gaming addiction is really a disorder in itself or just a symptom of an addictive personality. On top of that, if we're placing gaming in the same group of age-restricted genres such as gambling and alcohol consumption, what implications does that have? I think most people's problem is the slippery slope, that if this is affirmed as a disorder, then it could be manipulated for a political agenda against gaming. It's not impossible. There have always been murmurs by politicians who see gaming as this malevolent fiend that must be spited, particularly those who tend to reference single-edged studies on a very double-edged sword. In a way, this would open up many opportunities for new restrictions, and that's obviously not what the WHO are dictating here. And although certain individuals have accused the WHO of corruption, they can't refrain from classification just because other individuals may manipulate it. That would be on the public to call them out if they were behaving in such a way. Whether the public would or not is another question. It's a rather ambiguous debate. Some some parents would simply lavish the concept that they can pull out the gaming disorder against their belligerent child, while others are far too impartial to even give a shit. Not to mention that in a lot of Western countries, the authorities don't have their crusty claws in the regular household to the extent that I'm sure they'd love to. And the law is quite lenient. I mean, if you're a child, you could still be a homeschooled alcoholic in the UK. You're allowed to drink at 5 years old. It's an interesting fact nugget, but there you have it. So I highly doubt this will have too many implications, given the fact that gaming is mostly private and that the government can't really do too much without upsetting some businesses. Maybe a possible sanction on public institutions like schools maybe, but then again, that's not going to kill off too much, and school doesn't necessarily rely on gaming. I'd hope at least, though, you know, times might have changed that much. Either way, the gaming disorder is not to be confused with gaming, nor should gaming be confused as the cause. It should not be reason to panic. Your life will go on as many, I assume. Although technicalities do make this incorporation somewhat questionable, that's how it's gonna be. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on the topic. It's certainly a curious one, and until the next one, I'm the Right Opinion, and I'll see you then.